It's going to be eventually a community building.
East Jefferson. We are going to recording this meeting and putting it online on our website, and I just want you to know that the camera is here, it's picking up the speaker. I'll be sharing the speaking duties with others, but there is some catch of audience, so just wanted you to know in case that's of concern. If that's of concern to you, I think this side is not, the people on that side probably won't be picked up. Welcome to you who are online. We appreciate that you're joining us this evening. We are going to try to get this done in 75 minutes, allowing for plenty of question time. We have a number of people here who are going to be helpful in presenting. But first, I want to just mention and thank our board members who are here for coming. If you're on Habitat's board, would you raise your hand? They're kind of scattered around in the back. I want you to know who they are because you might want to grab one of them afterwards and say what you questions or what you think or give them input. They appreciate always to hear from people in the community what their thoughts are. We want to hear your thoughts tonight too, but we want to share. The last time we did a community update was just about exactly a year ago. So there's been a lot that's happened. We want to kind of remind you all of where we are and then share some of the things that have updated. We're going to share some of the images, which we're really pleased. Our architect is here, going to share that and give you a sense of what the community will look like. How many of you are aware that the sewer lines are going in right now on Mason and Cedar? Yeah, if you drove past the library, you might have gotten stopped by the traffic control there as those lines go in, which will make this neighborhood possible. We appreciate Commissioner Heidi Eisenhower, who's here tonight, the commissioner who's been long living. And I know she always is open to contact from her constituents, from all of us who live here. So we have a slide deck we're going to go through. We'll stop at some places in the deck and ask for questions. Those of you who are online can put questions in the chat, and Ellen, Michael, and Julie, who are on the laptop over here, will be able to share those questions as well as all of you. We don't have this microphone working. I want to just check first, is the voice level enough? Are you able to hear? Okay, great. We'll work at projecting that way. So tonight we are going to go through the update where we are, some images of what we're doing, and then some information about the homes themselves and what it would cost to live in a home, some things like that. So that's sort of our trajectory here. We always love to remind people what Habitat for Humanity's mission is, which is not just to build houses. You might notice that the core piece of it is to bring people together, to build homes, communities, and hope. And I will just say that that's one of the pieces of our mission statement that many people treasure the most, about bringing people together. At a time in our corporate life, that just seems really important. We bring people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And so hopefully you'll feel hopeful from this story tonight. We have a core team working on this project that includes Schemata Workshop, our architect firm, and we'll introduce one of our architects from there. Parametrics is a civil engineering firm. There is a lot of engineering that has to take place to be able to serve all these homes on this property, to make sure that all the things run correctly. Jet Landscape Architecture is making sure that we are working all the spaces, how they work well together. And CapEx Advisory is an owner's representative who's helping us with a lot of the planning. We also have Bob Collins, who's here. I'll be introducing him later. He's our staff member who's in charge of the Mason Street Neighborhood Project. And we are really pleased that several people will be presenting tonight. So where are we? Right now, where we are is that's that beautiful property at the corner that used to be a little private airfield. And one of the lovely things about that private airfield is how flat and open it is, along with having some really beautiful trees. When we first started community meetings several months ago, a couple of years ago, we heard from people how much they valued the property and how much they valued the path through the trees. And you'll see in the images tonight, those trees and how many of them are going to remain on that property. The original vision, just to remind us all, we were targeting about 150 homes. The sewer will unlock zoning that we could have done up to 205 homes on that property. And when we got into the planning, we felt that the neighborhood would comfortably fit a little bit smaller number of homes so that it didn't feel like an urban community. It felt like Port Hadlock community. Our original vision was homeownership and rental. Connections to the primary school and the library and transit, affordability for local workers. That was a primary part of our vision and the people who've been supporting it. Green spaces, community gardens, walkable, kid-friendly, and permanently affordable, which I'll talk about a little bit later, meaning that when someone lives there and decides in the future to sell their home, it will still be an affordable home for the next buyer. So that was originally where we were. Very much of this is the same, but I want to share a couple of things that we've really honed in on in the last 12 months and know about it. 136 homes, that's the number that will be there, and that's all designed, and you'll see that all of those homes are either duplex or quadplex, townhouse style homes. There won't be any single standalone homes, and you'll see the reason because it leaves lots of green space by tucking people, the homes a little closer together. 100% home ownership. We will not be able to do rental on this property after all. Our original vision was that we might have some apartments on this property. And as we got into the work of investigating that and vetting that and learning what we didn't know, because Habitat for Humanity is really good at homeownership, but doesn't do rental, so we had to learn a lot. The learning curve was steep and the work was hard. And we made a decision, our board of directors made a decision a number of months ago that we really needed to not include rental. We were already doing some things that were very new and very big lifts for us. For one thing, we've never done 136 homes before. For a second thing, we've never done such a broad income range before as what we are doing in the Mason Street neighborhood. So just those two things alone were a lot of complexity, and we had to pull back some of the complexity. So there won't be the 24 units of apartment in it, but there are still 136 homes in there. There are 2 homes for intellectually, developmentally disabled adults that will be owned by a little nonprofit in this community called Olympic Neighbors and run by them. Each of those homes will have 6 rooms in it for 6 adults who will be living there as part of the community. And so Olympic Neighbors will own those homes, and those adults will live there as part of the community, which we find to be such an encouraging and exciting part of how we're building this. And the next thing that I want to mention to you about a decision point this last year, we looked at the possibility that Habitat would just build part of the homes and other builders would build the rest. And when we got into it and dug into it, we realized that the best way that we could do it would be for Habitat to manage the entire build and to coordinate that way all of the people who will work on the site, from the plumbers to the electricians to the drywallers and everybody else, rather than having different builders competing for all those people and stepping over each other. So Habitat is the builder of the whole site. We have asked for and received permission from Habitat for Humanity International to go above our regular income level. Habitat for Humanity builds generally for people who are obviously who have income because they have mortgages, so they're a part of our workforce, but they are not the higher income part of our workforce. This particular site will be broad in the income ranges, and I'll share a slide with you later that tells you some examples of the kinds of jobs that will fit the income range of this site. So I'm going to ask Bob Collins to come up now and walk us through the next couple of slides, which he'll share with you the what the site plan is looking like.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. It is a big project, it's huge, but we have a line of sight for success. And so part of that is certainly through the help that we've gotten from the community and the team here. But part of what we're doing is basically saying, hey, how do we lay out this site? What does it look like? What does it mean to be fitting into Port Hadlock and yet achieve a level of density that helps affordability? And so here on this slide, you're just seeing a colorized version of those things in yellow and or orange are duplex units. The items that are blue or beige and along that access road, those are quads. And we believe that this layout it achieves multiple things. It allows a level of density. That density allows us a level of open space. And so as Jamie had mentioned, we're working to keep as many of the trees on that site as possible. And so this is one of the strategies that helps us do that. Jamie also mentioned a walkable neighborhood. And so what you'll note is that we have clustered the parking. And that clustered parking allows us to avoid putting driveways and roadways everywhere and instead focus on walkways. And so even though there's that long meandering road that goes from the parking lot at the lower right, connecting to Mason, that's actually a walkway. And ideally just for fire and services. There can occasionally be a pickup and drop off, but it's really meant for people. And Mike from Schemata will show you what that looks like through a really cool 3D view. The other thing that you'll notice in those parking lots, there's a median. So an area for planting and trees. That allows us to slow cars down, as well as create a green patch even in the midst of all that parking. And so that's a specific strategy in the two larger parking lots. And so we feel that this design allows us to achieve a density that helps affordability, walkability by concentrating parking, and then provides a whole series of configurations for from 1 to 4 bedroom homes, plus the 2 adult group homes, which will be 6-bedroom units each.
Are those large brown ones the large adult group homes?
Yeah, so the question is, are these large brown units, 2 of them, the group homes? And the answer is yes. So moving forward, this is the aerial view, the conceptual aerial view of Mason Street. And so you'll see it is fairly intensely treed. But once again, what we have here, and I'll just move to the screen, so sorry for those online, are our duplex units primarily. These are the quads, so 4 units, townhome style, and the 4 units townhome style here. And we believe that this looks awesome. Hopefully you do, hopefully this neighborhood, hopefully this community does. But once again, this allows us to build homes affordable and make them available in quite a quantity for this area. To make that happen, we have to build the infrastructure. So the county's providing that sewer line, but we have to create a lot of intense infrastructure in the site to build those homes. And so that sewer line gets connected to. Power gets put in the ground and the homes are connected to. Water, the same thing. And so the way we're going to achieve this is in 3 phases at the current planning. We will move from west to east. We feel that that's the best approach for this neighborhood and actually for the surrounding community. What this allows us to do is take and make the decision to start on Cedar Avenue as a construction access, for instance. So we will try to drive as much access into this property off of this lower corner avoiding going up Cedar and across Mason to build the homes. And then we'll just back out of the site to the extent that we can. And so by also taking phases, we manage the cash flow and we make the opportunity to build homes sooner rather than later. So as soon as phase one is complete, we want to get on that piece of property and start building the homes. And so that's what this horizontal build process will take, or make possible. I would imagine that this is about 18 months, 2 years worth of work across this. It could be as much as 3 years. And so what we'll talk about next is the vertical build, or building the homes. Right now, our concept is to build out of, as you can see, 5 different phases. That allows us to release homes as infrastructure is made available. So you'll note we start at the west and we move east. And so phase one is where homes will be made available the soonest. And then once again, the approach with the infrastructure in our building allows us to isolate those homes that are being occupied from the construction that's happening at the other end. It also helps us manage, if you will, the spend as well. So as a result, we've updated our timeline here. Right now in 2025, we are still working through the building design and we've started the permitting process. And so I know there's 1 or 2 folks from the county online, and appreciate the work that DCD has done with us. We've just completed successfully a pre-application meeting with the county, PUD, fire, public works. It is a big project, so lots of players, and the county has really been supportive of this project. And so that was completed just earlier this month. Ideally next month, we'll submit what's known as our preliminary plat application. So starting to create the space and the individual lots that those homes will live on. Through the rest of 2025, we're working on completing the design development to the stage of construction ready. And we will also be in a position to start sending out our 3rd phase of cost estimates, the actual bid packages. And so that's what we're working on and focused on through 2025. In 2026, we want to start. So we want to start moving dirt, and ideally it would be January of 2026. If we end up in February, I think it's okay. But that's when it'll all start. And so phase 1 building complete somewhere between 2027 and 2028. Sorry, I can't be more specific. Things happen. And so what you'll see is each one of those phases then marching out to 2032 on the completion of this neighborhood. It may seem like a very long time, 2032, it's not. There's a lot to do. And so really thankful that we've got a great team that this community has helped make available to us. And the part of that team is Mike Mariano with Schemata, and he's going to talk a little bit about design aspects. Thanks. Yeah, here's a question.
Any estimate on when you would start taking applications for units for phase 1?
That's it. We are gonna address that.
Okay.
We are gonna address that. And in fact, we should stop before we have Mike start and see if there are other questions.
Yeah.
Questions online, questions in the audience for so far. Chuck,
When are you gonna actually start building houses on this schedule? I'm doing all my site work. When are we putting stuff up?
Because we're phasing, we can estimate a single phase of infrastructure. Let's say it's 9 months. As soon as that infrastructure is finished and connected loops of, say, water, for instance, we're going to want to go right to the vertical build. And so in relationship to the phase 1, I would say it's the tail end of 26 and the first part of 27 is where I would estimate we start working on the vertical. Okay. Other questions? Thanks, Chuck. Mike?
great, let's go on. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Bob. As Jamie mentioned, it was a year ago, we were in this room. I presented a sketch that kind of looked like that, had a little more color on it. You know, we have done so much work with an exceptional team over this last year. I mean, in this last year, we've got a great civil engineer on board, a great landscape architect on board, and we're all working together with Habitat and the community partners to really make this happen. So, I mean, Bob took us through a lot of the content here, so, I mean, it's just a continuous development of what we shared last year, and we're super excited to see a lot of the initial concepts, you know, some of which, you know, the vision things that Jamie set out there, you know, we're continuing to follow through with. The ecology of the site, being sensitive to that, the pathways, you know, making a place for people, that's what this is all about. And I'm gonna take you down to the ground level, so one of our Google folks in the audience here was asking, you know, what is the content of that? And honestly, it's no longer a sketch, that's a physical, it's a virtual model of everything. So each of those little building blocks on there actually looks like this at this point. So, you know, what I want to do is kind of show some of the views as you step into the site. So this is essentially stepping off the sidewalk at Mason and looking south to the library here, you know, kind of up over the hill there. So what you see in this view is some of these cottage clusters at the front of the site. So again, you know, providing kind of low-rise, single-story buildings along Mason Street, you know, the transition to, you know, a little higher two-story buildings in the middle of the site. But, you know, what you see here is this continuous gable, you know, for economy and efficiency. You know, we're keeping things really simple, but we have pulled out these little porches. So we've got these little porch recesses that will make a great opportunity for residents to connect with their neighbors, looking at ways to install windows and position things for daylight and views out. You also see in here kind of a little kind of split rail fence. There will be a tremendous amount of landscape on this ground plane here. And that little boundary kind of demarcates, you know, private space from the more common areas, but landscape will flow through it all. So your experience is really one of a continuous site that is made for the residents of this community. You know, a couple more views as we step a little further in. You know, we're still designing and, you know, refining a lot of what you see here, so you don't see rafter tails and things like that. But what you are starting to see is some thoughts about how we can clad the building. So we're looking at using cement board as an economic material that can be painted in a board and batten or a lap siding kind of configuration. So in some cases you see vertical, and others you see horizontal. It's a combination of the two. The recessed entry porches are intended to be kind of a little smaller scale and make it a little more comfortable for people to sit on a chair and kind of visit with their neighbors. The entire site will be accessible, despite the fact that you see a little step up there. There will in fact be a ramp there. Nothing steeper than 5%, so nothing requiring handrails or anything like that, but it's all considered accessible. Another shift to the right a little bit. We've taken a color palette and we've proposed just kind of a traditional kind of craftsman kind of colors, a little more saturated than we understand Habitat typically does, but we're kind of punctuating the ends of some of these buildings with some bolder colors. I've got a quick,
Just press the right.
yeah, there's just a short little, just a little 20-second walkthrough kind of, you know, through those images. So, you know, again, I'm gonna show you the landscape plan coming up here soon, but yeah, it's a little stark right now, but that will be filled with quite a bit of landscape. As we step further into the site, we've got some of these oval kind of shape, you know, ellipsoid kind of shapes in the middle of the site, and you'll see that on the landscape plan coming up. But this is that fire access road kind of on the right, so it'll have landscape in the middle, landscape on the periphery. It'll be paved, so it can be used by, you know, kids on trikes and bikes and strollers and that sort of thing, but there'll be landscape on the side of it. This is stepping up to, you know, these two-story buildings. So, you know, this single-story kind of sheltering deep eave, and then as you go up to the second story, we've kind of shortened the eave configurations and, you know, trying to kind of accentuate the difference between kind of those taller volumes and the shorter ones. Again, kind of that sheltering approach to the ground plane. And in this case, you see a porch kind of semi-recessed, semi-pulled out, but it's still sheltered. That's just a response to the configuration of the floor plans. And as we step a little further into that kind of landscaped ellipsoid area, this is what you see. This is a fourplex again on your left. You know, we've kind of unified the colors in the middle with the neutral, punctuating some of the colors on the end. You still see the porch is recessed in there. In some cases where we've got an opportunity for corner windows in the bedrooms, the living room spaces, we're taking advantage of those to provide kind of more expansive views out. and another. The south is on the left in this case, the library is just over the hill there. We've really been very careful about looking at the existing trees on the site, preserving as much of the continuous canopy as we possibly can, and enhancing the ecology of the site. So this is a current iteration of the landscape plan. We've got an exceptional landscape architect on board, working with us and the civil engineer to really craft this. I get really excited as an architect about buildings. That's kind of what I do. But when we can make the space between the buildings as carefully thought through as the buildings themselves, then we really achieve a good sense of community and a great sense of place. So you can see kind of the existing walking path on the bottom of the image here that goes around the site. We've connected that all the way around. In addition to that, there are primary walking paths through the site. There's kind of a secondary path. Each and every home and amenity on the site is all connected together. So we connect the community and we connect all the amenities and the homes and the parking and everything on the site. If you afterwards have a chance to go up to that board at the end, the colored one, you can take a look at it. There's these multi-use lawns in the middle, kind of big open spaces. Again, we've preserved a lot of the tree canopy where possible. There's some key trees throughout the site, like the ones that are there now that we're saving the ones that can be saved and reused and left in place and sustain them and kind of put them in some cases in some meadows and enhance them with other trees around them. So there's a lot of thought that's gone into everything in here. There's stormwater approaches. So again, we've got a site that infiltrates stormwater down into the ground, recharging Chimicum Creek. We're taking advantage of that. We've got kind of shallow rain gardens on the site, so native plantings that thrive in a wet environment. So when it rains, everything's conveyed to these shallow little rain gardens, and you'll see cattails and things throughout the rainy season, and then it'll be dry during the summer months. But throughout the site, there's stormwater kind of scattered. We don't have a big vault or a big pond anywhere. It's distributed across the site so that it becomes part of the ecology of the site and the experience of being there. These are some images of some of the amenities on the site, like kind of the entrance to the main parking lot that we're looking at. We'll have some garden sheds and some bike areas, and there'll be a trash enclosure and multiple trash enclosures, and we're looking at how do we make those accessible, where the location is and how do people get to them. There'll be some shelters on the site for picnicking. There'll be the series of trails. There'll be some orchards. There'll be gardens. Lots of things are planned. Whether or not all this gets built at the outset of vertical construction remains to be seen. That'll be dependent on funding and the will to do it, but at least there'll be a vision in place. So that's what you'll see on that landscape plan behind you. It's that vision that the community can move forward on. So we look forward to continuing to refine everything. Again, it's a great team. We've enjoyed working with everyone. Look forward to continuing to work with Habitat and community partners to really bring this to fruition.
Go ahead.
I have a question about, kind of picking up on the garden shed about storage. These units are gonna be for families, hopefully. And families collect stuff. You get toys for the kids, and barbecues and garden equipment, and I wonder what kind of volume of storage you're gonna have so that those don't all end up in the front yard or that kind of thing.
We have 2 sheds that are pushed together in the backyard of each of the homes. So we're looking at sizing that, we're working on refining the size of that exactly to accommodate what the residents would need, but they're clustered together into a pair of sheds with a single roof overhead. And the intent there is that that can collect the bikes, the tools, the things that people have.
Adequate size to accommodate more than rakes and shovels or.
Yeah, Earl, it's really important to know that what we're doing are a couple of things. So one, we're trying to figure out where we get that continuous volunteer engagement. And so that's part of the
It's a
answer.
good place for it.
And then 2, we're trying to figure out what is that right size. And so we haven't defined the size of the shed yet. But that is one of the likely volunteer engagement activities. We're trying to build this neighborhood in a way that makes best use of dollars. And so that because of the scale, it means that we're gonna be using more contractors than we would for a normal habitat home. But that creates an opportunity for people to engage in shed building.
Sure.
So we are working through trying to get ourselves good at building standalone sheds at a right dimension to address the point that you're raising.
Oh, lots of questions, good.
We have
I can feel them, Kathy.
What's the landscaping is in, what's the maintenance plan?
So,
I'm gonna-
yeah, so, here, I'll just over here. The question was, once the landscaping is in, what's the plan? Mike actually alluded to the thought process that may not put everything in place right on day one. Part of that is for that very reason. We have to get actually a better understanding of the core cost of the landscape plan and each one of the segments of the neighborhood where we put landscaping. We also have to get a sense of what is that maintenance activity and what the HOA fee impact might be to the neighborhood. So we don't wanna spend, literally years building affordable homes and then make it unaffordable through a maintenance plan with the landscaping features.
Ellen Michael, you've got something online?
Yes, we have several questions from our community members online. Jay would like to know, what are the plans to provide for electric vehicles?
Yeah, as part of code requirement, we're required to put in electric vehicle charging stations. That is, the state mandates that, we're doing that. In addition, yeah, so that's the quick answer.
Awesome. And Christina would like to know how many parking places will be allotted for 136 units.
How many parking places?
Yeah, parking places, that's fine. Right now, we have a ratio of 1.5 parking spaces. So
Per home.
per home, that's correct. So if everyone has 2 cars or 3 cars, there's overflow. If everyone has 1 car or half the people have 1 car, we fit well. So we have to make the decision, and we did, as to whether we were going to build homes or build places to house cars. And so we ended up with 1.5, a ratio of 1.5 per home.
Thanks. Was there another question or you?
This is not a condominium development, is that correct?
No, all single.
Not a
family residents,
condominium.
Not a condominium.
Right. Okay, yeah, John.
So on the landscape plan, there's a lot of trees shown that are already on the site, but
Correct.
not necessarily represented on the landscape plan.
Correct.
Is this drawing representative of additional plants that will be added? Or
It's,
is this how it'll look in the end?
it represents both existing and new. Our survey kind of had a general area that said forested area, so we haven't plugged in all the trees. Since they're here, but they don't show up there, so the whole south side of the site is in fact heavily forested as it is now, there's no need to do anything. to it.
Yeah, there's no big open spaces
No,
like that.
no,
There's
yeah,
one.
Yeah, there are a couple.
A small follow-up question. There's several fruit trees on the site. There's some apples and pears. Is there going to be any effort to reuse those on site elsewhere? They're kind of in front of where the old trailer home used to be.
Yeah, and some of that,
Basically.
well, the ones there, and I think there's a few over here too. I mean, some of this is case by case basis, and our landscape architect's gone out there, they've looked at some things, and we're gonna save as much as we possibly can.
Can I go and cut scions then? Just in case?
Well, what I would like to do is, we can organize an event. What I don't want is the whole community going on the site and taking a piece of it. But I think that's a great call out. So if we could set
Love
up
that.
several events so that we can allow the community to come in and harvest and or take cuttings, that would be wonderful.
That's a great idea. There was a question back there. Yeah.
Yes, I was just looking at the picture, you made some comment about the porches and whatnot, I'm just wondering about ADA for people with a wheelchair or elderly people that need to access. Sometimes it's hard for ramps to fit or
Yeah,
ways to fit people.
we've spent quite a bit of time, in fact, recently with the civil engineer and the landscape architect, making sure that nothing is steeper than, 1 foot and 20 slope, so in 20 feet, nothing steeper than 1 foot, so.
Like even the porch.
Yeah, so, yeah, in the views that we had, we just had put
those ramps in yet. But there will be no step up to the porch, and your ramp will take you to each and every porch, so the entire site, all the homes are visible by everyone.
And then the interior is,
Some of the homes will be accessible and others will have bedrooms upstairs, so they won't be.
I think it's about 2/3 of the homes are someone can live in it, and there is a bedroom on the main floor that someone can live in without having to access a second floor.
but the hall, when I'm
With
talking about
hallway
things
with,
like
correct, and a
hallways,
bathroom
and
with
the
a
door
turning
doesn't,
radius
the
and so
whole
on.
bedroom door doesn't come out,
Correct.
blank wall.
That's right, yeah,
That's
all big clearances.
Thank you.
Yeah, these homes are built to habitat standards. When we say it's ADA visitable. And so, yes, that's hallway dimensions, door dimensions, slope of ramp, those. as
Turning radius in the
Turning
bathroom.
radiuses in the bathroom, and as Jamie said, there will be some that have second stories, but it's, I think it's 2 things. Are accessible.
There's another question, Heidi. Oh, and then
I'm channeling my mom here. Will homeowners be allowed to landscape their little yards?
For sure,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I'm answering that.
Okay, so where is the dedicated path to the library that you have?
Where's the dedicated path to the library, Mike? How would we thought that
It
one
is
through?
hidden in the green area on the south front of the site.
Needs to be good access.
Yes,
So is
it-
it working with the library to allow that?
Yeah, well, what we have though is that the library does have a fence, so it'll probably be channeled to the sidewalk, right? So the sidewalk is not far, the sidewalk goes right into the library.
Can I provide a little more color on that?
Yeah.
The land here is not owned by the library, it's associated with the school. And so that makes things a little more complicated, but both the library and the school have been amenable to working with us to make that connection. It just hasn't been a focus of what we've worked on
But
today.
it will be, good.
And so there's some.
Online, yeah.
Do we have a plan for overflow parking?
Overflow parking. We know that across on the north side of Mason Street, we are not developing that. That can be, certainly, there's not a reason people can't park along that parking strip. So that's not the overflow. You had a question.
Yeah, will a homeowner own the land that the house or unit is built on? Or will that be owned by Habitat? And will Habitat manage all of the common areas? Or will that be contracted out?
Great questions. So as Habitat will own all the land, and I'll touch on that a little bit more later. But yes, we will own all of the land. Habitat will not manage the land. There will be homeowners working together to manage their common areas. The reason Habitat will own the land has to do less with the management of it and more with the keeping it affordable for the future. And thanks for that question. I think you had another one, Heidi.
I was just gonna throw in that the 3 acres that sits between the
Yeah.
Mason Street project, the school and the library is one of the 2 locations being considered for an aquatic center. So.
I don't think we want that discussion here.
So just so you know that if you couldn't hear that online, Commissioner Eisenhower said that the commissioners are considering on Monday. One of the top locations potentially for the aquatic center is just to the south of the Mason Street property, between this property and the library and the school. Thanks for that. Was there one more question here? Yes.
Is there a feedback loop between the different design phases, meaning you get something almost right but not quite in phase 1, can you fix the phase 2 based on that and roll down to?
That's a great question. Is there a feedback loop that can iterate through phases, Mike?
Yes, yeah, I mean, there is, there's a lot of coordination that we're doing throughout as we iterate and refine and develop the design, which is why it's taken us a year to get from sketch to this form. And we still have months ahead to go until we're further along for permitting. So there is an opportunity for us to collect feedback and refine. Everything right now is, kind of, things are valuable and kind of slowly working out. We don't, there might be cabinets shown in some of these plans that we have, haven't shared yet, but there are things showing up in there and we're just working to refine those. So, there is a.
Dave,
Is there any conversation going on about just public safety? And I'm thinking what's happening in Southern California right now. And we're having a high density living space. What are some of the fire plans or that type of thing, particularly if we should have a sustained drought?
So I mentioned that we had a great meeting with the county, and hopefully I mentioned the fire, Jefferson County Fire as well. Part of that pre-application discussion was the conversation around the Wildlife Urban Interface Act or Zone. So that part of that is state, and then will eventually translate down to our local community. Rules around how do we build homes in areas just like this. So materials, setbacks of vegetation, whether there's sprinklers required or not, that is not fully completed. But that is part of the discussioning and planning that is taking place for this neighborhood. So I can tell you what's happening. I can't give you a specific because the specifics aren't completed yet.
I know that there have been some changes to the code, the building code, because of the wildland urban interface already, that we've had to change some of our build approaches, like with the bird blocking, for example, that we can't let sparks be able to enter into a space in the house. We had to change how we did that.
So things are in flight. So to speak.
Laurel, so what is the plan for the roofing material currently?
Yeah, one of those, it's a great question. So I can tell you what I want to do, and I can tell you what we're willing to do. What I want to do is metal roofs. What we're willing to do is make the homes affordable and compromise to composite. So that's the trade-off. We have to figure out how we get to an affordable home with the best features. I will tell you that Habitat is in other neighborhoods working metal roofs. It just comes down to the economics. What can we achieve?
So is that still part of the discussion?
Yes, absolutely.
You have a question in the back and then to online.
Yeah, just to follow up on that point, if there was some folks who were really dedicated to the fire protection aspect of it, could they make donations for specifically that type of building material? Could we be fundraising for that specific type of building material?
Look, I'm gonna answer that and then maybe Jamie needs to come over the top of it, but I can't build a roof without the house underneath it. And so the systems all work together.
Right.
I want metal roofs, but I'm willing to compromise if it means we get to build the houses. And so I'm literally committed to it. I just can't say that's absolute right now. But as recent as 2 weeks ago, metal roofs, right? But the economics are real. And so we have to get to a home cost that is achievable for the residents of the neighborhood with a subsidy that this community makes available as well. So there are trade-offs.
And online.
Craig would like to know if there's going to be a loading zone for unloading things like people and groceries.
A loading zone.
Yeah, so we have conceptualized, it's not represented here, but we have conceptualized locations where individuals could wait, and they were covered shelters. We at one point were thinking, hey, let's put bike shelters everywhere throughout the neighborhood. And instead we said no, but perhaps those covered shelters would be available for individuals to wait for pickup. There's also the possibility that the neighborhood decides that that access road can be accessed for pickup and drop off abilities as well. And so that is part of the discussion. But on those types of things, I want to say this. What the phasing allows us to do is to start with a group of people and move across the neighborhood and let those people help inform us as to how the neighborhood should operate before it's handed over. And then once it's handed over, those individuals can decide how the neighborhood operates because it's their neighborhood. And so that's the real answer. People will be able to determine how to operate their neighborhood.
Thank you.
You want to just touch on the walk time? I know there was a lot of careful consideration between each parking lot area and either the distance or how many minutes it might take to get from the area where you parked to where you might live.
Minutes.
Yeah, seconds, maybe it's down to seconds.
Was it 25 or 30?
I think we no greater than 30 seconds to the majority.
Yeah.
For 90% of the homes, I think, have a 30-second walk from a parking place.
That was very right up front is, hey, if we're going to consolidate this parking, how long is it gonna take to get to your home? And so that was a commitment, something we addressed right up front.
Yeah. Well, why don't we move on and get, keep your questions, because we want to answer more. These are great questions. We're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about how we're making homes affordable on this, in this neighborhood. Permanent affordability, I've mentioned a couple of times. This wheel is a little small probably to read, but we are doing permanent affordability and have for the last 2 years now, where we own the land and we sell the home. And the buyer builds wealth and keeps the house affordable for the future through limited appreciation. So how does that happen? Habitat for Humanity grants the buyer a 99-year lease that's renewable and inheritable, so it feels like it's your land. The purpose of the lease is to let someone buy a house at the price that's affordable for them. And then in exchange for that, the person agrees to pay it forward by limiting their appreciation. Our market rate appreciation has been taking things to not affordable places. That we just know that. We know that a Habitat house we built 10 years ago sells for now its market rate is something way more than a person can afford who's working a similar kind of job. So somebody who does this and has a lower price on their home than they would if it was out in the open market has a limited appreciation, but when they go to sell, they get all their equity back that they've paid in on their mortgage, all the principal that they've paid down on their loan, plus some appreciation. We feel like that is a trade that works really well for a lot of our homeowners because it's much better than rent. You don't get anything back when you're renting. And we believe that most of the people who go into this community will be coming from rental situations. And so now instead of when they pay their monthly payment of $1,000, let's just take an example, instead of $1,000 never seeing it again, some amount of that is going toward your principal. And when you go to pay it, it's like you paid some into your savings account. Plus you're getting 1.5% interest a year in appreciation. That sounds maybe like a small amount, knowing what appreciation might be on the stock market or something, but appreciation of 1.5% tracks very closely the last 20 years of income increases in Jefferson County. That's just about what the median income has increased over the last 20 years. So that kind of tracks so that with that much appreciation, somebody who buys it can sell it to somebody who is similar to them, is a nurse or works at the mill or is a restaurant worker. How much does a home cost when you buy it this way? It might be that a 2-bedroom house is $350,000. But because your income might be lower, you might only pay $250,000 for that house with a combination of down payment assistance and some interest rate preferences. And that means that you are in a really great house, but it's affordable to you because nobody is going to pay more than 1/3 of their gross income each month for their home payment. If you're a homeowner already, you know that your house payment includes your principal, interest, taxes, property taxes, and insurance. So your monthly payment includes all of that, but it actually includes some more. It includes also a $50 fund that accumulates over time that helps to pay for future repairs on your home. It includes a $50 lease fee that Habitat collects because of owning the land so that we can continue to have a stewardship role of that land, meaning communicating with you, helping make sure that all of the needs are met for that land. And it also includes if there's homeowner association costs, and there will be. But when you put all of those things together, it still isn't more than 1/3 of your gross income. So there's just kind of sample approximate payments. All of this has small print, if you're noticing. Numbers subject to change. We're gonna need to look at income sources and all of those things that and regardless, it says regardless of the actual cost that it is for us to build the house, your mortgage is going to be based, your home price is going to be based on your income. So it's a really important thing to know about this. It's a pretty exciting thing to know. It means that those who are able to pay a little bit more because they have a higher wage job will be helping to make it possible for those with a lower wage job also to afford their home. What kind of people, what kind of occupations might fit in here in terms of affordability? It's the people who power our community that can fit into this. I didn't get everybody up there, I know there's lots more, but it gives you an idea that it's a very broad range of people who can contribute to this community and make it possible for all of us to live here. I could have put in car mechanic, I could have put in lots more things, but it gives you still a sense of what it is that we can see as living side by side in this community. Kind of exciting, right? Like, this is a healthy place to be. I wanted to just mention that Mason Street applications for homeownership will open up likely later this calendar year. Keep in touch, watch our website, put your email down so that we can notify you. But I also want you to know that we're taking applications right now for locations in Port Townsend. So those ones will not have as wide a range of income, but we have lots of information about that. Just go online or give us a call. We have orientations. Our orientation is recorded, it's on the website. Our application materials are available. We just have started 6 homes in Port Townsend, and we're starting a 14-home community later this spring in Port Townsend. And the 6 homes, we've got people lined up. The 14 homes, we don't have the first people lined up yet. People are going through that application. So there is a great opportunity there for people. We also want to encourage you to stay engaged about what we're doing. There is a QR code if you want to point your phone at it, it'll take you just to that same web page that the address is in. Or just go to habitatejc.org and do neighborhoods, and you'll find Mason Street. You'll also find the other neighborhoods that we're building in Port Townsend. And that's our slides. And we're going to stop and see what other questions. We're running on great time. Yeah, John.
Do you have a better name than just Mason Street yet?
Thank you for asking that. So we sent out an email when President Carter passed away and asked people to provide ideas about how we might honor the Carters and the legacy that they had, really certainly with housing and Habitat for Humanity, but many other things in this world. And we've gotten a lot of suggestions that something about Mason Street and Cedar Streets be considered with the Carters in mind. Don't know what that means yet. We really don't. But yeah, we don't have a better name yet. And we'd like this not to stick forever, so, yeah.
I prefer Hadlock Landing myself.
Hadlock Landing, you like that because of the airfield, yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. Questions, yes.
Neighborhood sort of, self-ruling has kind of come up. And I'd like to know how that actually operates. Does that mean that each neighborhood has a central place like a co-op where people get together and decide things? Or is it a bigger area that they address? How does that work?
We are, I appreciate that question, and for those online, the question is about how is the self-governing going to work in this community? We're working on that now. We have some volunteers who are helping us think that through. Some other people who have kind of thought about how do you create a homeowner association that's not just about gotcha and, you know, people getting in trouble, but really about how do we create a very healthy, happy, livable community. So we're still working on what that means and what that will be like. And if you have any experience in that, would love to talk to you about your ideas in that. Our hope is that that will not be a place that people just make rules, but it will be a place where people build community and figure out how they want to live together and what are their ideals about living in that community. Certainly there will be conflicts that happen. That happens with neighbors. I have never lived anywhere where there wasn't some kind of things you had to work out for friendliness with neighbors. But we are yet to see what that structure is fully. It will likely be a homeowner association, likely a single one, but that's still to be decided. It could be divided into more than one.
And I have one more question. Will there be a central place for gathering for the whole development?
Wonderful question. I'm gonna slide back here to a few, go back. We are showing right now two small structures that those online I'll just describe, where you see the multi-use lawn. It has a number 1 circle on it. So a little black square here and a little black square here. But those are outdoor shelters that could be used for picnics, could be used for birthday parties, gatherings of whatever kind, a family reunion, whatever. But that's the hope right now. Mike, any things about what you're envisioning with that?
No, I mean, that's really it. We had considered a hangar type structure, so a single location, but as we were laying out the site, just realized that, you know, for this community of 136 homes, to have access to more than one location was really important to kind of provide that social connection for everyone.
Does that make sense to you? Not sure.
That's not exactly what I was thinking of, but.
You were thinking more like a building that people could go inside of.
Yeah.
We are not planning that primarily to keep costs down. That was certainly an option that happens in places like, I know Port Ludlow and Calla Point both have situations like that. And we just felt that we are trying to really deal with how do we make this affordable. We are already, as we've gone through this, it looks to us like the houses, the cost to build the houses and the mortgages that will come will probably be about a wash. But the purchase of the land, the planning, the permitting, the design, and the infrastructure that goes in is a big price ticket. And we have to raise all that money for that. So we have to keep kind of it down, plus the maintenance of it, keeping the ongoing costs of it.
I would like to add too, and one of the great things about this site is the proximity to both the school and this library. So,
Yeah.
There will be the ability for people to use these resources regularly, and potential rec center would be a tremendous asset for me too, but I won't get into that. In science, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are things nearby here, which is, you know, a tremendous opportunity for the community to come together in places exactly like this, without having to build it themselves.
Yes,
Yeah, so you have a timeline for going through all these different phases.
Right.
Is progressing from phase 1 to phase 2 contingent on phase 1 being built, where you actually have buyers and actually have income.
Sure is.
And I actually asked that question because it's kind of a unique model. And, you know, with no garages, no yards,
Yeah,
a lot
well,
of
people want to buy
porches and
it.
everything, it's just like, you really have the people who are gonna just start buying in the next year.
It's a great question. Will people buy it? That's a really great question to ask. So with our traditional habitat homes, we always have more applicants than we have homes. That may change with this. We may be facing that like, okay, now we're getting some scale. We are working on how we're going to build that up, but we did do a feasibility study, a market study before we even started this to look at that absorption. And we found that there was appetite for this and that there were buyers for this, that people needed it. When you look for housing, if any of you have looked for housing or know people who are looking for housing, there are very few options in Jefferson County.
It's important to note that there are yards. I think I heard you say no yards. There are yards associated with this, with each home. And then Habitat doesn't build garages presently. And so it's just not something we do.
There's a potential we'll do carports over the parking structure, over the parking areas. That's still under consideration.
So what's the target price, like on a quadplex or duplex?
It will depend on your income completely.
So give an example depending.
Yeah, so that.
Those income ranges.
Let's go back to that slide. So on the left, those are kind of the target right now, those prices. And then depending what someone's income is, it will come down to a place that they can afford. But those, I think, on the left are kind of what we're thinking would be the full price.
Yeah. And there would be 4-bedroom units?
There are, I think, maybe 8 4-bedroom homes, yep. And there are maybe 8 1-bedrooms. Most of them are 2s and 3s.
Good, thanks.
Is there some kind of design for a mix of ages?
Yeah. Well, our experience is that that's exactly what happens with Habitat. We're getting ready to build a community, the 6-home community in Port Townsend. We have a whole range of ages from older couples to younger families with kids. And I expect that will continue. That's what our community looks like. Yeah. You guys have been great. Any questions online?
Craig online would like to remind everyone to follow us on social media.
Thank you, Craig. Social media, thank you. And Ellen Michael, you can provide any update on how to do that if you want, but on our website, can people get to our social media accounts?
Yes, absolutely. We're Habitat EJC on Facebook and Instagram right now, and soon coming to Blue Sky.
Good deal. Yes.
Can I just ask one more question?
Please.
Since these are all habitat homes, does it work on the same premise that a normal habitat home would follow, like sweat equity? Does each one of those homes need that?
Thank you for asking about sweat equity. We do think these will still be sweat equity homes. It will be a little different, as Bob mentioned, because contractors will mostly be building the home. So we are looking for all the opportunities of how people will be engaged. We don't know if it will be the same number of hours as traditional. We are still working all of that through. You like that part of Habitat, the sweat equity piece?
I think it's great, yeah.
Yeah, we like that too, yes.
Well, this is an unsolicited helpful suggestion, but.
We like unsolicited helpful suggestions.
Perhaps as part of that sweat equity, you might incorporate some kind of building trades programs and coordinate with the local schools. I realize it's a liability thing, contractors.
No, that's perfect. Liesl, or yeah, Bob, can you want to talk to that local trades?
Oh, do you want to talk to it, Lisa?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So, very brilliant idea. So we're actually working on that. It is a great idea. We're working on that activity. So last year, we completed just a pilot of a shed building program, working with the Community Boat Build Project. So we had to do things to say, we don't know everything, a lot of everything we don't know. So how do we do this? And so we did an effort last year, we learned some things. We're now gonna turn that over into designing a program that stands up. Early conversations are with a local high school to do that, but we're still working through it. I mentioned the shed building as part of sweat equity. That is also something that could just bolt on to the school activity or could be a standalone effort for our habitat.
Ellen Michael.
We have a question online about the AMI range for the development. And if there would be a defined number of full market homes versus below market homes.
Thanks. So what's the range? So our technical range of area median income is from 50% to 150% of area median income. And just for if you're a number person, the 100% of area median income for a household of 4 in this county is around $88,000 right now. So 150%, you know, what is that, 130, something like that. So that kind of helps you get an idea of how high it might go. And what was the second part of that, Ellen Michael?
Would there be a defined number of full market homes versus a defined number of below market homes?
There will not be any full market homes. They will all be below market in exchange for having the restricted appreciation. Yeah. Great questions.
This is a follow-up to the sweat equity question. Then this is me not understanding the habitat model completely.
You're fine.
Does then the home price come down based on sweat equity?
That's why the home price is down. That is a part of it, why it's down, is because people help participate in their home. They are,
So that's already factored in.
it is factored in, exactly. Thank you for that question. There was someone else who had that.
Chuck over here.
Chuck.
Jamie, so I'm looking at a 2-bedroom house and I see that I've got a down payment assistance and I qualify for that 250,000. How much does it cost to build that house? More than 250, less than 250?
More than 250.
And so where does the assistance come from? Is this something Habitat's putting in? We have in the past.
Yeah, so we work hard at that fundraising.
Right.
And I want to introduce Liesel Slaybaugh. Just stand up, Liesel. Thank you for teeing up that question. We are working hard because there's a lot to fill in the gaps that we have to do. Grants, individual contributions, state and federal funding, all of it, it takes a whole amount. The county has been generous in this. The county helped us buy this property with federal ARPA funds. So all kinds of things. But if you have questions, Liesel is really working on some strategies right now for how are we going to fill that gap? And we're doing a lot of thinking about that, a lot of talking to people and picking their brains and saying, we need to fill a pretty big gap to do all that horizontal portion. Help us think about that. So you somehow are have a relative who has a lot of money they want to invest.
Pass a hat right now.
Yes, Julie.
Taking off my Habitat staff hat for a moment and putting on my neighbor hat.
Because you just live right around the corner.
And this might be something for Heidi to address or just keep in mind about increased traffic on these very narrow and broken down streets that are around Mason and 7th and Patterson, and how that planning is being
Thanks for asking that question about traffic. I know we did a traffic study. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, so the question is in regards to traffic. And so as part of a development like this, a traffic study is necessary. We've performed a traffic study, submitted that information to the county. They get to review it. The upshot is that there are no new issues associated with the traffic study that we've performed. The county has an opportunity to come back and comment, but what happens is that given the methodology that's used, they identify problem intersections, right? There are no new problem intersections. There are existing problem intersections, but none immediately around the Mason Street neighborhood. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
When do you think you're gonna start to need volunteers for like phase one? Would that be end of 2026?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We haven't quite figured out the full scope of the volunteer effort for this. We can say that, as we mentioned earlier, we're trying to get this neighborhood built quickly so that we can turn the homes around, so we use contractors. That's not to say, though, that volunteer hours, say at our coming Landis South neighborhood or Cliff Cottages neighborhood, doesn't accrete to the overall mission. Sure. And so feel free to volunteer now. Is what I would say.
Thanks. I saw another hand. Who was that? Nils, was that you? Did you have a hand? No, okay. Well, we really appreciate you taking time out of your evening. We are always happy to talk. If there are people you know who are kind of concerned or have more questions and they just didn't feel comfortable coming out, point them online, tell them that there will be a recording, and also let them know that we are always happy to sit down and listen and work to address questions and concerns. We want this neighborhood to feel good to the neighbors who are already in this community. That's what it should be. We are working really hard to do that. But if we don't know the concerns that might exist, it's really hard to address them. So thank you to those who are online. Habitat staff and board members, many of us will stay around for a little bit afterwards and are happy to address more questions one-on-one. But we're gonna get you out 3 minutes before we said we would. So have a good evening.
Yeah, I don't know. It's amazing. Yeah, a year ago, we had sketches. It's like we got.